On behalf of VMware, I'd like to welcome you to today's webcast, Architecture as a Critical Element of a Security Strategy, presented by Anthony Dezilva of phoenixNAP. Thank you for participating in today's webcast and for your continued support in the Global VMware program. Before we begin, I have a few quick housekeeping items to go over. First, today's webcast will be recorded and available for on-demand. You'll receive a follow-up email with the on-demand link from today's webcast, so be looking out for that. Second, a Q&A session will follow today's presentation. All questions will need to be entered in the question window near the bottom of your GoToWebinar screen. Third, there will be a short online evaluation that pops up as you exit the webcast. Please make sure to take a minute and let us know what you thought of today's session and what you might like to see going forward. One attendee from today's webcast will win a $100 Amazon gift card, and phoenixNAP will email the winner directly following the webcast today. So good luck. All right, let's get started. I'd like to introduce you to today's presenter, Anthony Dezilva, Director of Product Management of Security Services at phoenixNAP. Anthony, I would like to turn things over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for joining. The introduction was already made. I'm the Director of Product Management Security Services. That means I'm kind of the visionary for what our security services product line is. And without ado, I'm going to jump right in. phoenixNAP is an infrastructure provider. We're a global data center. And what you're seeing is the sites we have around the world. We were founded in 2009, and we're about 500 plus employees right now. And there we go. And this is basically our products. We look at our products as an ecosystem. And as we go through the presentation, I'll talk more about that. But each of the products complement each other, and as they complement each other, they build upon each other to create a holistic solution. So if you look at a hardware solution, it complements our infrastructure, and our infrastructure complements our cloud services. And we'll focus on the cloud services as we kind of go through the presentation a little bit further. And then we want to also talk about our security services and how the security services plays a role in creating a secure infrastructure that you can take advantage of, especially for things like regulatory workloads. All of that's great. And if there is a situation, and you can't stop everything, right? Something comes up. And this is why we have our availability services, basically our backup and disaster recoveries. The goal is not only to protect the network, but to be able to recover and go back into business. That being said, what are the risks? We've all seen the different slide or versions of this. There's a lot more risk than meets the eye. Underneath the covers, there's a lot of impact to having a security breach of some sort. And in this day and age, with the regulations the way it is, it could mean the end of the business. Some key things on this slide: average cost of record in the US, $221. Average loss based on a breach, $4 million. As we go through the stats, more updated stats. Now, in 2016, I looked at the Colorado University stats, and they basically said there were 1,013 data breaches with an average cost of $3.8 million to the business. If you look at the newer stats, we're seeing 7,000-ish malware attacks. We're seeing, I think the one that bothered me the most was 430% increase in file encryption attacks, 554 zero-day threats, zero-day being threats we didn't know existed prior to finding them. The Verizon data breach report actually was kind of one of the things that hit me, was that 58% of the victims were small businesses. Basically, our core user base was one of the prime targets for the attacks, and there were 53,000 incidents with 2,000 confirmed data breaches in 2018, according to the Verizon report. So is this threat real? Yeah. We're looking at an uphill challenge. This is coming one way or the other. It is not something that we can ignore. Thankfully, we have these things called frameworks that give us some guidance on how to actually defend against some of these threats. Now, they're not the complete solution, but they certainly allow us to create standards-based solutions that can interoperate. And the nice thing about basing a solution on a standard-based solution is that as a customer, when you look at it, at least you have a level of expectation as to what that solution is going to do and how it's going to perform.
Kill chain.
Yep. So there's no security solution can be kind of had without the kill chain, right? And what that was it's basically the stages that everyone has to go through, or an attacker has to go through to complete an attack. Now, the vision and mission of cybersecurity program at phoenixNAP, basically what our goal is to take enterprise level solutions and bring it to the small and medium business market space in an affordable way. NIST framework, we based our solution on the NIST framework, identity to recover. And we kind of talked about the recover in the beginning with our solution set. What that looks like, you've got to be able to assess your network and look at where your vulnerabilities are, where your gaps are, those kind of services. Now, that is not our core competency, so we actually we work with a lot of partners to do that. Application security, again, not core competency, but we work with partners to actually provide those solutions to our customer base. Threat management, that is basically what we're talking about when we talk about security services. We want to detect that threat. We want to be able to identify it and react to it. And in case we don't, we want to be able to recover that environment. That being said, big picture, right? Why does all this matter? Well, you want to take all of this, and what your end goal is to create an operational secure environment, a compliant environment, and you want to basically survive an attack and continue doing business. Our solutions, threat detection services, you'll hear me talk a lot about incident triage and the backup and recovery. I'm going to kind of jump through these because I want to get to the core of this conversation, which is the architecture. So there's no, I'm going to get on my little soapbox here. It's like everything starts with a good architecture, right? You can't do anything without properly designing, properly planning out what your solution set is. You have to have good documentation. You got to have good policies and procedures. Architecture alone won't suffice. Your policies and procedures is how you measure how you're performing. You've got to have a plan. And the plan also includes what happens when things go wrong, right? You also have to know what you have. You can't protect your network if you don't know what you have on your network. And you got to be able to monitor that. You've got to be able to detect when something's happening, and you have to have the ability to investigate and respond. And obviously, you want to learn from that, right? When something happens, you're going to learn from it, and you're going to go right back through this cycle. So when you look at threat management, I actually categorize it in two ways. There's what we call threat intelligence, and what we call the threat management. In the threat intelligence side, we see an incident or compromise. We take that information in, we enrich that information, we validate if that is a real threat, and then we escalate based on that. And the end goal of the escalation is to create a mitigative strategy or a compensating control that we can then implement within our customer base. Now, on the flip side, on the threat management side, we're taking logs from our customers, from our own systems, and we're putting that into a SIEM. And the whole goal of the SIEM is to aggregate those logs against the threat vectors that we're seeing out there and try to identify something that's going on right now, and that's going to create an alert. That alert then tells one of our analysts whether that's hey, this is just something that's happening on the network, it's a false positive, or they make a decision and they basically respond to that. They create the alerts, they pick up the phone, they call you, they do something, right? That's how you stop something that's going on. Now, Actually, kind of went ahead of myself. So what does the orchestration side look like? We've actually got a process we run through. We use incident orchestration to actually speed up the process so that what we call first point of contact, when we have a threat show up to one of our analysts, we want that to show up with all the information they can possibly have so that they can make an intelligent decision right then and there. Basically what that is, the goal there is to speed up the response process. Threat data sources, I think everyone knows what these are. Basically, you got firewall logs, database logs, Active Directory logs, behavior analytics. All those things feed into the system to provide that correlation. Now, let's get into the architecture side. We look at phoenixNAP, we looked at everything as building blocks, right? So you've got at the bottom layer, you've got your communication fabric. We're an established data center. We own our own backbone. All that plays into creating a secure solution. The secure infrastructure solution. Basically, one of the things we're going to talk about as we go through this is what we call data security cloud. That is a secure cloud offering that was architected from the ground up to be a secure environment. We've proved that with the PCI certification that environment has attained. Now, on top of that, you want to look at running operating systems that are hardened, whether it's the CIS standard or whatever other standard you choose. Run hardened operating systems and secure your applications, and you want to be watching everything that's going on your security from the security services side. So that being said, what does that look like? Again, robust communication fabric, 724 NOC, customer logs coming in to look for indicators, a threat management program, having the threat data sources, and supportive tools that go along with that. Tools like being able to look at PCAPs and things like that to get additional information. Now jumping kind of into our cloud service offering, right? We've talked about kind of the layers. Again, we're looking at everything in layers, and we'll look at the data encryption, the application security, the monitoring being right on top. So there's no substitute to good architecture. Now, what I try to depict here is basically a layered approach to the different pieces of technology that play into a system, right? The biggest message there is things like your backups, things like your buckets of information, things like your database servers. There's absolutely no reason they should ever be talking to the internet, right? So they should be isolated away behind these different layers so that you've got your front end servers talking to the internet and everything else just talking through that, through those front end servers, and never having communication. Now, there's things you got to do, patches, you got to do those things. There's strategies around implementing cached patching servers into your management network, things like that you want to account for. And when you do, you actually make it very difficult for the attacker. Basically, you're never going to stop somebody, but you want to make it as difficult as possible for them to get to the good stuff, which typically is what's in your databases. VMware NSX allows us to create some very cool, very good solutions that weren't possible before, right? If you looked at a cloud environment, you didn't have the ability to do micro-segmentation. With Cloud Extender, we can now extend between cloud and physical environments. So the new technology really allows us to mix and match and even create these hybrid solutions across the different cloud platforms. What we did, we talked about DSC being a secure platform, and we attained PCI certification for it. It took basically working with Intel, working with VMware, taking the technology like the TPM modules, the built-in ecosystems between VMware and Intel, and integrating key management solutions, integrating all those things into a platform that was architected for security, architected for creating a secure environment. Now, I'm not going to go through this whole pyramid, but basically it talks about the different layers of implementations and different components that you add to guarantee that this is a secure environment. Oops. Again, layers, right? What I'm depicting here is basically all the components that went into building what we call this data security cloud environment. Nothing fancy here. It's standard implementation. But what was important was one of the things we had learned with our experience in doing cloud for extended period of time is to separate out the management infrastructure from the compute cluster. And we've done that, and we've basically created an environment that is more resilient, is more secure than anything else we've done in the past. Again, the Intel technology allows us to, using the affinity rules, make sure secure workloads stay on secure platforms and not move into insecure environments. So, an architecture, right? What I've depicted here is basically 3 network segments. The primary network being the internet-facing segment, the second segment being like an application transaction layer, and the third segment being the database and kind of the storage type of stuff. All of that connecting into a customer edge. Now we can protect each of those layers from each other and the internet through ACLs on the customer edge. Now you can take that one step further. You can certainly put local firewalls inside on each of those machines, and you can control all of the communication, not only managing north-south traffic, but also the east-west traffic. And when I say east-west traffic, what I'm talking about is server talking to other servers in the same network segment. We do recommend, obviously, putting a hosted WAF or something in front of your infrastructure that lets you handle that the application layer threats that you would get for putting a machine on the internet. Now, as part of our data security cloud, we actually get the logs from the edges and we monitor those logs for you. It is a base level of service that we offer, and we also offer upgraded packages where we will actually monitor the environment itself, the servers, again, giving you not only a secure infrastructure platform to run on, but a monitored platform where you actually have reactivity to any threats that we see, and you're taking advantage of the global threat intelligence that we've developed by through our entire client base. So remember we talked about threat intelligence platform. So what I put up was actually what we built inside of our own data security cloud environment for that environment. Again, you see 3 different network segments, varying degrees of security requirements for them, various internal and external communications needs. And the nice thing is all 3 of these environments are in one VMware org, so it's easy to manage, it's easy to report on, it's easy to look at. But obviously the DMZ environment, web-facing environment, we want to make sure that that is isolated, yet we want to get things out of that into the internal environment. Similarly, there's communications that go back and forth. All of these are controlled by ACLs, and the next couple of slides actually are screenshots of what that environment looks like in VMware. Actually, I might just jump to it. Now, this was a shot right out of the VMware console. Obviously, I blocked off the IP addresses because there's some information in there I don't want to get out. So the first thing we did, we went to the edge, we configured the external IP addresses. Second thing we did, we set up the various different networks inside of a VMware. Like the bad network, the DMZ, the internal, we set up the IP ranges. We then went in and we set up NAT rules for these different networks to communicate either to each other or to the outside world. And finally, we set up the firewall rules that actually managed the communication between all these different environments. So, going back to that other slide, what's possible? Well, anything you can create in a physical environment, you can create in this virtual environment. I believe, in fact, that we can do more for cheaper inside of this virtual environment than you can with a physical environment. And you've got better architectural options. Now, one of the things I certainly advocate is whatever you design for the physical environment, you actually take and you implement in the virtual environment. They really shouldn't be different, because this way you can mix and match your different solutions and actually keep the same architecture, reducing the level of complexity that you have to manage in the long run. In our system, we've got DDoS mitigation built into the network, so you get that as a standard feature. Because we're monitoring the system, we can produce reports, typically reports that you can use if you're under any sort of regulatory compliance requirements where you need somebody to be watching the system or need somebody to be reacting to events in the system. And finally, because it's virtual, you can expand vertically and laterally a lot easier than if it were a physical environment. Again, global data center. We've actually got the ability for you to expand into the various different sites based on this same type of infrastructure, especially because you're running on our own backbone, and we can create secure solutions that allow you to create these very complex solutions inside of a virtual environment for much cheaper than it takes you in a physical environment. That's it. I went really fast through this. I think we're good to jump to questions.
All right, thanks, Anthony. We have a question here. It says, can you run regulatory workloads in this environment?
The answer is yes. We have attained the PCI certification for the environment, so we can certainly run the PCI workloads in that environment. And our security services offerings are designed to monitor and produce the kind of reporting you need as well for running in such an environment.
Great, thank you. Another one here, it says, how do you compare to AWS?
So I did some math, and basically my math said it was about 30% cheaper to run a similar workload in our environment. Now, keeping in mind, in order to run a secure workload in AWS, you're looking at GovCloud or something like that. This was just comparing public cloud to what it takes to have your infrastructure on Data Security Cloud, and we were about 30% cheaper.
Great, thank you. Another question here says, does your architecture handle containers such as Docker?
There is an implementation. I don't know too much about it. We have been looking at Docker. This environment, Data Security Cloud, does not, as far as I know. But what I can do is get back to you with that information on Docker.
Okay, great. So that's from Kevin O'Neill. Kevin, if you wanted to put your email address in here, then Anthony can reach back out to you.
Perfect.
Oh, and he sent another question. It says, does your architecture support moving workloads to or from mobile devices?
What do you mean by moving to and from? It certainly can support, obviously, if you had a Citrix workload on there, having that on the mobile device would work. But can we clarify that a little bit?
Okay, we'll see what he answers. In the meantime, I have another question in here, if you're ready for it.
Yeah.
Okay, it says, can you prove PCI certify in any environment?
Yeah. you can't. Well, PCI certification is an implementation level certification, right? Our environment supports your goals of PCI certification, so it's a supporting supporting the infrastructure. PCI certification, your implementation, what you do with it, how you implement your software, any procedures, all of that go into what as you as a company that gets PCI certified for your implementation. So we can't prove that you're certified. We can provide you the infrastructure, and we can tell you that our infrastructure supports PCI and PCI implementations, and that's what our attestation says. But I think ultimately that's really up to the client implementation. So we can provide an attestation that we've got, but I think that's as much as I can answer to that, John.
Great, thank you. Again, let's see. I don't see any questions coming in right yet, but we can give it another minute or so. All right, here's another one for you, Anthony. It says TrustZone/TEE is a secure application isolation capability supported on many mobile processors. And I'm looking at moving data/apps between TrustZone capable devices and servers.
Yeah, I will need help to answer that one, Kevin. So I think that is another one I'm getting back to you on. That is way over my head, and I'll need engineering to help me answer that.
All right. And a question that says, will a recording be available after the webinar? And yes, it will, and you'll also receive a follow-up email with the link to that recording. Let's see. I don't see any other questions coming in. We can wait a couple more seconds or so. Anthony, is there anything else you would like to add?
I think that really the conversation goes down to architecture, right? It's the always think good design, and when it comes to good design, implementing that same design in that cloud, but also take advantage of the expanded services. And yeah, it's I would definitely say cloud offers a lot more. I'm obviously I'm being a cloud evangelist right now, but cloud definitely offers a lot more capability than we've ever had before. And because of that capability, we can create better solutions that we'd normally compromise on because of the physical limitations of not enough servers and stuff like that. I would urge anyone to go check it out. Especially if you have a concern about taking your physical workload and putting it in the cloud, I would highly recommend get a trial, try it, and I think you'll be surprised with the results. Especially because the type of processors we're using in these systems, the type of memory, the architecture, the backbone, all those kind of things play a role that you wouldn't normally be able to assemble that kind of infrastructure unless you're a very large company. And for our client base with a small to medium, you're getting access to that enterprise tools at kind of a monthly capex cost. That's all I got. That's my pitch.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Anthony, for taking the time to speak to us today. A quick reminder that one attendee from today's webcast will win a $100 Amazon gift card, and phoenixNAP will contact the winner directly. And another quick reminder that you will receive a follow-up email with the on-demand link from today's webcast. You can all view the webcast again. And to find out more about the VMUG program, you can visit vmug.com/learn. And please make sure to complete the short online evaluation that will pop up as you exit the webcast, and let us know how you thought today's session went. And from all of us here at VMUG, thank you and have a great rest of your day.